Hello and welcome to Dyscalculia module. This is colour, context, concept and concrete. And I will get those all wrapped around my tongue as we go along. My name's Andrew Whitehouse. You can follow me on Facebook at People First Education, Twitter at Andrew WSEN, also Instagram at Andrew WSEN. You can get me on LinkedIn, Andrew Whitehouse with a load of letters after my name. And you can email me, Andrew at peoplefirsteducation.com, and I have an online presence at peoplefirsteducation.com as well. I'm a TEDx speaker, from disability to superpowers. I'm a Bamford lecturer for the British Academy of Audiology, forensic special educational needs and disability consultant. This means I do expert witness work in the courts in SEND cases. I'm a hearing ambassador. I'm also a SEN short course provider for Bishop Grosseteste University and the University of Lincoln. So, what is dyscalculia? If you have a partner with you, please feel free to have that conversation. If it's just yourself, then please, make a few notes and see if you can come up with a definition that you think is dyscalculia. Welcome back. So, dyscalculia. Dyscalculia, it is not the number form of dyslexia. We'll go into that in a little while. But it is a very complicated and difficult concept, one of our 4 C's if you are a child with dyscalculia or indeed an adult. Now, I'm going to read out a few little, the definition from the Department for Education and Skills in 2001. The dyscalculia was actually, the way it's been defined was actually the DFES at that time. What they did was they took all the presentations for people with mathematical skills, put them together and called it dyscalculia. So it's a very unusual way of defining things, but that's how we do it in the United Kingdom. So it's a condition that affects the ability to acquire mathematical skills. Dyscalculic learners may have difficulty understanding simple number concepts, and I do mean simple ones. A lack of intuitive grasp of numbers, have problems learning number facts and procedures, and even if they produce a correct method, they may do so mechanically and without confidence. And that's still the and that's still the governmental take on dyscalculia. So that was DFES 2001. There are other definitions of dyscalculia out there. What all of the definitions have in common are a presence of difficulties in mathematics, some degree of specificity, i.e. If you're dyscalculic, it doesn't mean that you're going to have problems with writing or reading or science or anything like that. It is specific to mathematics, and the assumption that they're caused in some way by brain dysfunction. When I say that, what I'm actually saying to you is that it's not caused like fetal alcohol spectrum disorder by brain damage or anything like that. So that's those 3 things are what all the definitions that you get have in common. There is a definition by the Czech researcher Kosh, who come up with something quite similar to the DFES. We think some of the things that we think it might be is premature birth, so lower grey matter density in the left intraparietal sulcus, the bit that does mental maths, that is, that part of the brain. Maybe correlation of an abnormality in the X chromosome, but really, truthfully, we just don't know. And so I wouldn't say we're guessing, but we are it's calculated theory would be the right way of putting it. What we're talking about today is what is called developmental dyscalculia. There are other ways to get dyscalculia. For example, acquired dyscalculia, which could be from having a stroke, a brain injury, that kind of thing. Acquired dyscalculia isn't really a dyscalculia, it is a form of brain damage, and a stroke or a head injury could just as easily have caused difficulties in a different part of the brain. So it's not quite the same as dyscalculia. Dyscalculia, it's a convenient term. It's a term we use for all manner of problems with mathematics. Like a lot of these things, like dyslexia, like autism, like ADHD, we believe it's probably largely genetic. It affects the parietal lobes of the brain, and it reduces number sense. It is a real disability and endorsed by the World Health Organization. This means, as a professional, if you are a professional working in school, you have a legal responsibility to make reasonable adjustment for a young person with dyscalculia. So it's important that you take on board what we're saying today and relate that back in the classroom, because you have a legal responsibility. And actually, you don't necessarily need a diagnosis. According to the Special Educational Needs and Disability Code of Practice, the terming is may have SEND. So in actual fact, even if you just think that person has a SEND, that's enough to put the interventions in place. I'm sure most of you anyway, if you saw a problem and you had an idea of an intervention, I'm pretty sure that you would do that anyway. 25% of the population have difficulties with maths. 5% have dyscalculia. It's not gender specific, and it's not related to intelligence. So let's break all those down. What we're saying is 25% of the population do have difficulties with maths. That means they're not good at maths in one area or another. So, for example, I am absolutely dreadful at algebra, got no idea, absolutely useless. Tried, believe me, if you knew my algebraic journey, you would understand. I have tried everything. I don't get it. But it doesn't make me dyscalculic. Only 5% of the population have dyscalculia, and as I say, there are much more people with mathematical problems. It's not gender specific. So we look at ADHD and dyspraxia and dyslexia, and we say they're all approximately 80% male. Actually, no, it's not. And it's not related to intelligence either. It doesn't make you unintelligent just because you have dyscalculia. Primary dyscalculia means we have problems in the working memory and the inability to relate numbers as abstract or to absolute quantities. I'm going to repeat myself on this later, but number, what is a number? A number is a presence, it's a symbol, it's an amount of things, and relating those abstracts, like the number 3. So the number 3 would, it's the difficulty in relating that to 3 actual items. So I've got a resource here that I'd like to show you straight away. So these are times table activities, and on the back of these activities you've got so if we had 2 on the back of there, it would say 1 times 1, and that's a good way for people who don't have dyscalculia to learn times tables, to consolidate times tables by playing little board games like this. I'm sure you've got all sorts of things in your school. This would not really work with a dyscalculic learner. Learners with primary dyscalculia may be assisted using visual spatial cues and strategies, but for many basic concepts of number and arithmetic, it will never be straightforward. And it isn't straightforward. I mean, if you look at that picture, that image on the screen, if we just take subtract, there are so many different terms for subtract. And so we've got the symbol, we've got the words, subtract, take away, difference, subtraction. In addition, we've got the symbol, we've got add, we've got plus, we've got sum, we've got addition. And it does get very, very complicated. And just learning the mathematical vocabulary is very difficult for some children. Those are colour-coded. Going to talk about that a little bit later. Some of the difficulties people with dyscalculia may have, remembering specific facts, following sequential directions. Again, going to talk about that a little bit later. But you know, go to the end of the road, turn left, over the humpback bridge, these kinds of things, very difficult. Learning musical concepts, not just playing an instrument. So for me, for pretty much all my life, or all my life barring a few short ones at the beginning, I've been a bass player, electric bass. And one of the things that really helps me playing bass is the fact that it's very number based, that it's all done in shapes and it's all done in numbers, your scales, etc. And you can imagine that's difficult for a person with dyscalculia. Also, those lines and dots and on written music also can be difficult. Left and right, mastering arithmetic facts by traditional methods, abstract concepts of time and direction, money, exchange of money, working out differences in money in different countries. So I can remember a friend of mine who thought they'd paid £5 for a painting in France, when actually they'd paid 500 francs, which is about £50, and so approximately. And so you know, it can be very difficult and confusing. Acquiring spatial orientation and keeping and track, telling the time, keeping track of the time. Telling the time is really getting more of a problem, because there are less clocks in rooms and houses and different places. So just a few of the dyscalculia difficulties. While it's possible you might grow out of some difficulties, you do not grow out of dyscalculia. Okay, it's a neurological condition, it's a disorder, it's there. And so, however, there are some indicators that you can use in home, at school, to find out if you think a person has got dyscalculia. So some of the things that you might look at are taking a longer time to tell if a number is larger or smaller, or greater or smaller, I should say. Trouble with rounding, even with relatively small numbers. Over-reliance on physical strategies like counting with your fingers. I'm going to just say something about this. I'm going to reference Ofsted a little bit later, but counting with your fingers, I think that's a really super strategy. I think it's one that we can use all the time. It's a resource that we've got with us all the time, and I have no problem with that, as long as we're counting up to 10. So I'm going to just straight away here, some of my resources that I've got here with me. So I don't see a difference between counting with fingers and counting with unifix cubes. And there we go, we got 5 of each there. I don't see a difference with that, but I do know that I know someone who was criticised by Ofsted for allowing a child, or allowing a group of children, to count with their fingers. So I don't see the difference. The only thing I would say is fingers are more convenient. You have them with you all the time. I had to go looking around my house to find these. Difficulty with addition, symbols. I'm going to give you some insights into symbols, subtraction, and transposing and reversing numbers. So 36 for 63, etc. Also, some numbers that look similar. This is one of the relationships with dyslexia. I'm going to say to you right away, dyslexia and dyscalculia are not the same condition, just with numbers. Dyslexia, dyslexia is described as word blindness. Dyscalculia is described as number blindness. I would say dyscalculia is more to do with concept, whereas dyslexia is all to do with visualization, or a lot to do with visualization. So getting 3s and 8s confused, poor mental maths, using basic formula, remembering maths operations. And one of the things that you might find is you may have a learner, they can do this on the Monday, but they can't do it on the Tuesday. Inability to remember times tables, and using calculators to check the answer 2 or 3 times to just to make sure they don't embarrass themselves. And so going back to inability to remember times tables, I'm a big fan of chanting, times table rap, all that kind of thing. Inability to remember things like your home phone number. Interesting factoid for you here. People's abilities to remember telephone numbers have increased. People are better at it since the mobile phone came into being, but not with dyscalculic people. Difficulty reading a clock, copying shapes accurately, and that would be also in things like mirroring, tessellations, that kind of thing. Inability to estimate quantities, even small ones. So the idea that we've got some, can the screen see that all right? Yeah. And they can see what's in it. So we've got all these unifix cubes, the inability to guess. Well, that might be a problem for both of you, but if I was to put that in my hand, this relatively small amount, for someone dyscalculia, they might find it difficult to guess those too. Difficult counting backwards from 10, puzzles, visual spatial or considerations, and scoring games. One of the great mysteries in life is how do darts players score games when quite often they've been drinking as well, but that's another question. Telling the time, conceptualising time. Most people, it is a difficult skill for people, but most people can conceptualise the time. For example, I know if I'm on my coffee break is approximately the amount of time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. That's how you know it. And you're pretty much sure, yeah, if I go back about now, then that's my coffee break over. You know, when I used to smoke, I could associate a cigarette is approximately 5 minutes to smoke a cigarette, I guess. Difficulty conceptualising the passage of time when numbers are involved. Punctuality can be a problem. This is a bit like ADHD. I know I was speaking to a specialist in ADHD who said to me he'd got a client who come out with this wonderful quote, "Time means nothing to me." Well, actually that can be the same in dyscalculia. Judging distances and visualize mechanical systems. So other things they might struggle with is geographical locations, north, south, east or west. So I'm in my house. At the end of the road there is a road that I know leads north. By the very nature of that, I know that if I was to go in the opposite direction, I would be going south, and if I were to turn off left or right, I would be heading west or east. This is the sort of thing that people with dyscalculia will struggle with, and that also includes things like taking directions. Obvious problems with counting, measuring, remembering basic maths facts, and understanding shapes. Generally organising information. Have you noticed how a lot of these conditions are all about organisation? Okay, here's the good news, because you'll all be sitting there going, my good grief, it's a lot of stuff. Yes, but nobody with dyscalculia, or probably nearly nobody, will have all of these presentations, and most can be helped. Generally, dyscalculic people will plateau at the end of primary school and without proper intervention make only 1 year of progress in secondary school, according to Morehouse 2014. It's an interesting point that Morehouse is making, is why would that be? And I do get professionals say to me, why wasn't this picked up in primary school? I also get higher education and further education professionals asking the same question about things like dyslexia. And sometimes they have an inability to sort of accept that there is something wrong, because it surely would have been picked up much earlier. You know, why have we waited till 12 years old before something has happened? Well, quite simply because expectations are higher. And as expectations are higher, then the person with dyscalculia will find the tasks more difficult. I remember as a student, when I started my teaching degree, the amount of students that left in the first week because we got set an essay. Some phrases you might listen out for. I find it hard to copy a list of numbers read out or even on the board. I sometimes see a number written down, but when I copy it, it's in the wrong order. And I do this with the phone sometimes. It takes me forever to do mental maths. I don't know what fractions are, odd and even numbers, and when it comes to square roots, ... And I can't do my times tables. When I do problems, I forget where I've got to and I can't finish off. And when I do get a problem right, I'm not sure how I did it, and the teacher thinks I've copied somebody else. Okay. Big numbers confuse me. I can't do percentages. And this is actually what a child said to me. If two trains leave the station 5 minutes apart, I rip my ears off and eat them. I don't understand the 24-hour clock, and I get the math symbols confused. And I can't remember the names of shapes. So here's your first quiz for the day. I'm going to ask you to look at this. This is a dodecahedron. How many sides is a dodecahedron? I'll pause for you now, and we'll come back to you and see if you can work out what a dodecahedron is. And we've got our first wrong answer. And this is from our we've got our producer, director, and editor behind you going, and he's actually wrong. It isn't 20. It's 12. Do and 10.
Clearly.
You
think it'd be 20?
You'd think it'd be 20. If it makes you feel any better, I thought it was 20. Who knew it was 12 out there? Wave at me. I can't see you, but wave at me anyway. I can do with all the friends I can get. Who thought it was 20? Yeah, well, you've got to go off and have a little sulk with Isaac there. Yeah, he was dead excited as well. He was going like that. Yeah, sorry. Okay. And therefore, and what I will share with you is this particular person, he is an incredible mathematician. Maths is his thing. So maybe I should tell all his mates. I'll put it out on Twitter. You didn't know what a dodecahedron. That will ostracize.
I don't think we've ever been taught that.
Yeah, I think you'll be ostracized from nerd society. Right, moving on. Maths frightens me. I can't do maths. Maths is boring. Maths scares me. What's the point in maths? I'll never need to know this. I'll never use this in real life. That's actually how I feel about algebra. And I never got maths when I was at school. I feel stupid. Everyone else can do it. Find X. There it is. There it is. We've circled the X and pointed to it. All job done. We can move on to the next thing. Interesting with that one, that could be confused with autism. Find X with rigid thinking. Yeah, they found that. I have an experience. I did a workshop I did 2 workshops in actual fact down south at a arboreal college, and one of the things that I did down there was what did I do? Oh yeah, I put some guidance together for answering exam questions, because they had a lot of autistic students, and some of them were really quite interesting, like compare and contrast these 2 texts. One's a bit bigger, one's got a red cover, one's got a blue cover, etc. Dyscalculia is the inability to recognise numbers, calculate space-time or numerical sums. Hinders a person to recognise numbers as a concept and a symbol, has a massive impact on internal maths. So let's look at difficulty conceptualising symbols. When you see it laid out like that on that board, it's very easy to understand why people will have difficulties with this. Really, really is. So difficulty conceptualising symbols. 50% of children with dyscalculia will also have dyslexia, and 20% of people with dyscalculia will have ADHD. And I wonder if part of that thing with ADHD is the fact that is the fact that it takes a lot of attention in maths. For example, remembering 2 to 3 stage operations. In the world of ADHD, 2 to 3 stage operations are just out there somewhere. Believe me, I know it. So, just to look at it, if we had 100 people in the room with ADHD, 50% of them would either be dyslexic or dyscalculic. So that's quite an interesting fact in itself. I'd love to see a breakdown of both of those. And although I took this from a reliable source, you will notice that that they've spelled dyslexic wrong. What is it about spelling dyslexic wrong? It really is. You've got to, if you're delivering dyslexic training, you've really got to read your handouts before you send them out, because people will give you a hard time for making a spelling mistake. In addition to learning disabilities, learning disabilities can cause children to become frustrated, develop behavioural problems, then become the focus of the intervention. So instead of putting an intervention for maths, we put an intervention in for a behaviour, leaving the underlying cause unaddressed. Yes, absolutely. And then you've got confusing maths. So I use this particular piece of worksheet in dyslexia and dyscalculia, and I look at it from a different point of view in both of those courses. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at it from a dyscalculic point of view. Okay. When we're reading this, Zach has 3 bags of sweets. Each bag contains N sweets inside. You can look at that and you can say, actually, there are only there is only one thing in there which is unchangeable, which is the 3. If you don't understand mathematical concepts, you will not know that. So if we look at it, Michael has 3 buckets of frogs. Each bucket contains X frogs inside. Okay, and so a person with dyscalculia would find that really difficult, because we're really getting tangled up in mathematical vocabulary and all the money and real life problem type vocabulary surrounding that. Dyscalculia is a specific learning difficulty or disability in mathematics according to the Equality Act 2010. I've already told you, you've got to do it, so do it. But yeah, you can also find yourself in difficulties if you don't put in those reasonable adjustments. Implications for some of the teaching instructions should be sequenced clearly in dyscalculia. Try to have their complete attention when they're doing something. So from a strategic point of view, avoid giving instructions while the learner's reading or copying. Break down tasks. Give them ability to save numbers, write stuff down, take notes, show you're working, but in a way that they understand. And if you're using any new vocabulary, mathematical vocabulary, put it on a wall chart or something like that and direct them to it when you are actually using that new vocabulary. Use concrete materials, Numicon, Cuisenaire, beads, buttons, counters. If there was a fight between concrete and abstract, concrete would win. So I've got a very, very big box down here. So I'm going to hopefully pick up my big box. You can take the man out of teaching, but you can't take the teaching out of the man. So is this a good spot for the, can we be seen?
If you pick the stuff up as you're
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So what have we got in here? Lots and lots of toys. We've got abacus. People don't tend to use abacus much in schools anymore. I really like them. I've got 4 in this box. Shows how much I love them. We've got beads, make a very pleasing noise, and somewhere in here I've got some laces to put up here, put the beads on. You will never ever see me throw out a bottle top, because I love using bottle tops, all these sorts of things. When I do these courses to a live group in the room, I put all the bottle tops out, and I get them to I get them to just play with them whilst we're doing the work. And here, in a Bishop Grosseteste University bag, I've got my counters. My counters are particularly special because my counters are see-through, and that's really good because you can cover up a number, but still refer to it if you want to. And also, you can color code numbers. So we've got different color. Oh, it's gone in. Oh, anyone here slightly bothered that there's a counter gone in with the buttons? So you can color code numbers as well. So if you're doing a different type of calculation, a subtraction or an addition calculation, you might cover the numbers with different colored counters. So lots and lots of bits and bobs and toys in there. So I'm going to move that there, and I'm going to put, if you hear an almighty clatter, that'll be me. Okay, where's my keyboard? So the 4 C's. Colour. I talked a little bit about colour coding, but I'm going to talk more about it as we go along. Context. Putting your learning into a context. So, for example, I'm going to talk about using calendars and road signs and things like that. Make sure you've got plenty of concrete resources. And remember that there may be a concept problem there that you need to address. More stuff you can do for visual, card games, board games, and I've got, not with me here right now, but I've got any number of card games, and I'm just in the process of learning to play Magic the Gathering, which has got lots of maths things on there. Board games, fantastic. Talk about your methods, quick, easy routes. It's the journey, not always the answer. How did you get there? How did you find that out? Because then you can use that again. And encourage the child to develop their own systems and strategies, and preferably systems and strategies that can be adaptable to other situations. So here we go, and I'm going to use my live studio audience of 1. I want you to add 597 plus 284. So that's 597 plus 284. So if we can...
801, 861.
861. Who knows? I didn't do it. So, yeah, 861. How did you do that, Isaac? Go through your method. Pretend you're back in primary school.
So...
big voice.
What were the numbers again? I can't actually remember.
597.
Yeah, so I did the 4 from the 284 and added it to the 97 to make 601.
Lovely.
And then I added 681, and then I did another 200.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So that's how you did that. So you added the 1s first, then the 10s, and then the 100s. Okay. And I actually did it I rounded it up to 600, meaning that left me 281, and I added those together. Some of you will have done the old-fashioned milk bottles on the doorstep and all those kinds of things. It's entirely up to you. But what I'm saying is, if you find a system, there are so many ways of doing it. If you find a system that works for your dyscalculic learner, stick with it and use it. Okay. Right. Moving along again. So, okay. Giving children their own work. Differentiation. I am genuinely seeing a big problem with a lack of differentiation as I'm going around. Something at their level, allow extra time. Even with problems they can do, sometimes, they might need that bit of extra time. Be cautious to be aware of the difference between extra time and frustration time. For example, I once pointed up a stone wall. It took me a long time. I never finished. I had all the time in the world to do it. All it actually did was create a situation where I was just hugely frustrated, getting more and more angry with the thing. and it caused me difficulties. And the metaphor's there, you know. If you've got a difficult situation for a difficult mathematical situation for a dyscalculic learner, you know, all the time in the world might not be enough time to help them. Use visual rather than verbal instructions and questions. Dyscalculic children are already spending a lot of mental energy trying to understand the maths. The last thing they need is to have to memorize the instructions at the same time. So just, you know, just have it written down there. Have it as a concrete thing. I've got some Dyscalculia lesson plans here in my big box. And they are very, very much about the visuals. You know, we want that sort of stuff. We want that sort of stuff with Dyscalculia. Lots and lots of things about visuals. I've got a really good one I'm going to show you a bit later that I like even more. But that is a good one. Look at this. Absolutely, absolutely brilliant. Printable resources. This one really is super, actually. And lots of visuals. Okay, so these are called Dyscalculia lesson plans. This is book 2. And this is book. So, and those ones came from Special Direct. So, you know, picking up these sorts of things, absolutely brilliant. Especially if you, as a teacher, are not confident in planning maths lessons, using these books is a really, really helpful thing to do. Dyscalculia learners often employ strong visual approach to learning. So use your colours, highlighters, highlighting difficult parts of a problem, you know, looking at the shape and the colour of the words, highlighting important facts to tap in with your visual memory, absolutely every time. Colour code your operations. So here we've got multiplication operations are blue, we've got addition operations are yellow, subtraction are green, and division are red. And I would then suggest that when you're printing things off or putting things on the whiteboard, aren't the whiteboards great for this? Interactive whiteboards, that is, putting things on the whiteboard, that you can colour code them. You can also use coloured punch pockets to differentiate. So we would hand out work that was addition work in yellow punch pockets, etc. Really, really good. Coloured punch pockets, by the way, I've talked about them in other workshops. We've got dyslexia to come. The dyslexia workshops are, I use them a lot there. Best place I've found has been Amazon. I think it's $3.99 or $4.99 for about 50 different coloured punch pockets. There's another resource I want to share with you, because I'm a lovely sharing person. And this is called, it's American, it's called the Math Handbook. And I think this is an absolutely brilliant text. Got lots and lots of visuals. If I were going to write a book about dyscalculia, this is the book that I would write. You know, everything's colour coded. Can they see the colour on that? Bring it up a bit.
Yeah, I think it's the green is at the top and the blue is.
Right. Okay.
I'm just explain it.
Yeah. So there are different colours being used there. Obviously, some really good colourful stuff here and here. So we've got one on the screen that I photocopied. When this book first came through the post to me, I went through it. I think I got it like the day before I was doing a workshop. I'm telling you again, it is Helmi Faber, the Math Handbook, and I was literally going through, taking photos of the pages to use the following day, because it really was such a great book. Yes, you can count with your fingers. That was a message from one of my Doncaster schools who got picked up by Ofsted, by an inspector. I find it difficult to believe that that's an Ofsted policy. I think that was just probably a spurious act. Spurious act. What a lovely phrase that is. So we're going to bring in our editor again now. And editor, you need to now subtract 144 from 239, or in other words, 239 take away 144. For the rest of you, you have also got this activity.
Um, 95.
You think it's 95?
It's not 95, is it?
Well,
it's 90.
Okay,
I can't remember what was the numbers again. Right.
Okay, so it's 239.
Yes.
Take away 144.
Okay. Yeah, it is 95.
It is 95. You're absolutely right. But did you see the way? Did you hear the way he sort of showed a little bit of doubt there? How did you do it, Isaac?
The four. I can't remember.
Can I just stop you there? This is an interesting thing because quite often when we run those workshops, and people will have their answers, and somebody will come up with an answer, and I say, "Would you mind sharing that with the group?" They regularly say, "I can't remember how I did it now." Yeah,
it's not that I didn't. I can't remember. I can't remember. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I can't remember how to do it.
right. Okay, so it is that. So,
Yeah.
and that's an interesting thing as well, because how these are adults. Isaac's an adult. These people on courses are adults, and in actual fact, if they can't do it, maybe it's confidence, maybe it's nerves, maybe whatever. How are you expecting the kids to do it? So you might give them a little bit of notice. So I'm sure if I'd have given Isaac notice there, he probably could have reworked out how he did it. For me, I took the 100 away first, so it was 139 take away 44, and I knew that 44 was 5 more, and that's what took me down to 95. Whatever system suits you, stick with it. Some more lovely resources in Helmi's book here. So that top this is called division darts. So 5 times 4 is 20, 5 times 9 is 45, 45 divided by 9 is 5, 45 divided by 5 is 9. Really, really lovely. I wonder if we could make some kind of magnetic card dart game with that, using those cards. I think it would be great. And what Helmi's also done is in the top right hand corner, she's put them down as word sentences. So again, really, really helpful stuff to do. Really visual, really concrete, and makes fantastic connections. Resources, bricks, Lego, buttons, bottle tops. I'm going to talk about the abacus there. The abacus has to be a stripy abacus. You can get, I've seen abacus that are all the same colours on all the beads up and down. Pointless. You need the colours. You have to colour code. Bricks. I've got my Unifix, which count as bricks for me, as you know. Buttons, bottle tops. I did take in, I should really put this in a presentation sometime, but I did take in a huge galaxy bar into a course one time, and we had a group of people working on the galaxy bar, and they found it far more interesting using the cubes of galaxy to work their multiplication. Lego's a great one. Just going to check here. So I'm going to check with my conscience over there. Isaac,
Yeah.
in Lego, what does a 6er look like?
2 by 3.
2 by 3. That's what I would have thought. Yeah. What about one that's just 6 long? So just 6 by 1.
1 by 6.
So 1 by 6.
Yeah.
So 1 by 6 and a 6 are different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they are. He's looking at me like I'm stupid. Yeah, and so we're there developing our own mathematical language. There we go. There's an abacus for you. Particular abacus. Great big one. If anyone finds one of those, I'd love it. I don't think I've got anywhere to keep it. But can you imagine as a child doing that? The other thing you can do is there is a function on the interactive whiteboards that you can put in an abacus in there. So lots of things to do. Which number is larger? Which number is taller? Which number is greater? Well, we got 7 and 9. Which number is greater? Well, I was born on the 7th of July, 7th of the 7th. So I'm going to say 7 is greater because it's a great number. Of course, that's not what they're asking. We've got more mathematical vocabulary. Which number is larger? 3 or 8? Again, you know, it can be quite confusing. Technology can help calculators every time. I've got my calculator with me, so if I can show it, and again, this is well, that will show up, won't it?
Yeah.
Good old-fashioned calculator watch. A little bit retro, I know, but I've always got it with me, and I like to use it. And of course, we've got our phones with us. Does beg the question: how much maths do we have to be able to do when we've got the technology with us all the time? I always remember my teacher. You know what I'm going to say here, I'm sure. You won't always have a calculator in your pocket, Andrew. Turns out that times have changed. But you know, even if you don't use them as all the time, even if you do engage with the maths, you might well want to use the calculator to check your answers. So, sometimes you might want a calculator with large pads, and the ones on iPads and tablets are really good for that. Some technology, if you want to get involved, maths games, we've got some of the ones that I like. There are zillions out there. I should be getting you to tell me. ICTgames.com, topmarks.co.uk is fantastic. That's a search engine for everything educational. There's some great maths on there. And then from a million years ago with the ITPs, interactive teaching programs, they're fantastic because they're very, very simple. And so, in fact, I also mentioned those on the sensory part of our autism modules on module 5. ITPs is interactive teaching programs. They were developed by the Department for Education and Skills years and years ago. They're still out there. If you can search around and dig in for them, they're still out there and you can download them. If you can't find them, get in touch with me and I'll point you in the right direction. And there is one. So really, really simple stuff. And of course, when they were developed, they were developed for interactive whiteboards, but we now find that they're a really good resource on a phone or on a tablet. This is topmarks.co.uk. That's the search engine. Again, put in what you want, put in your subject, put in your age range. Boom. And this one is the Funky Mummy. The Funky Mummy is a non-threatening maths activity. So we've got the question at the top is 6 plus 9. What is the answer? 15. We open 15. The monkey comes out. The mummy comes out and dances. We click on 7. It doesn't tell me I'm a loser. It doesn't blow a raspberry at me. It just shuts again. So I get lots of chances to have my go. And if I want to feel good about it, I can print off a certificate. There's a certificate at the end. Using rhyming songs and mnemonics. I ate and ate until I was sick on the floor. 8 and 8 is 64. That's really nice. I also love patterns. I love patterns. I love the patterns in the 9 times table and the 3 times table. And here we go. Okay. Isaac, you're on, lad.
Mm.
Okay. Now we want to know, how do you multiply 13 by 55? Or just give me the answer if you like.
You do 55 times by 10, so 550. And 55 times 3, which is 165. So what did I say? 55 times 10. Oh yeah, 550 plus 165, 650, 715.
Well done. Well done. Is it okay? Is it okay when we're multiplying by 10 to just add the 0? There's a question for you, isn't it? Now, I can feel mathematicians getting quite uptight with me now. And but you know what? I wonder how many people, when we did that question, just added the 0 for the 10 elements. Yeah? Okay, well, What I'm going to say to you now is I don't believe in adding the zero in formal mathematics. I think if we times in by 10, this is to forget decimals, by the way. That's a different concept completely. But in actual fact, if you've got learners that they really just need to know that they're going to buy 10 cans of baked beans at 55p a can, if they add the zero, it's going to be £5.50. As a life skill, I think, I think that's something to consider. I had a head teacher I worked with had a phrase. He used to call it these learners, and what he meant was those learners that struggle with different things. We can put in different interventions for these learners, but in actual fact, not for everybody. So we don't want to get lazy, but sometimes we might have to do it. And there might be some learners that just never get that concept, just like I've never got algebra. A little bit more. Whilst we're talking about decimals, I thought we'd put some more from Helmi's fabulous book up there. You can imagine how excited I was. I'm easily pleased. And so they're comparing decimals. They're comparing decimals to fractions there. Absolutely fantastic. Really nice and clear again. And all the different ways of representing it are on there. Talking of fractions, I'd like to show you something here in my magic box. Actually, yeah, I'm trying to find large bottle tops, that you can draw on, and you can just put the fractions onto lids and things with a Sharpie and stuff like that. I was trying to find some bigger lids, but I don't seem to be able to. So really, again, good little resources that we can have a bit of fun with. What is a number? Is it a symbol? No, it's a concept, and it has meaning. A number is a word. The number 4 is a word, F-O-U-R. It's a symbol, 4, and it's also a presence if you have 4 dots on the dice. People without dyscalculia would immediately see those 4 dots and recognise that the concept of that. That's something you might have to do a lot of work with people with dyscalculia. And again, we've got some stuff from Helmi's book there, which I've been using ever since I got that book, and to help you along with that concept. Number bonds to 10 done with dice. A few other issues a person with dyscalculia might struggle with: data handling, shape and space, algebra, speed of working, estimation, percentages and fractions. I was doing a workshop, one of my regular evening twilight workshops that I run in the northeast Lincolnshire, around the Scunthorpe area and around there, and I was having a conversation, and I said to the group, I said, it's funny that even mathematics as a concept has only got one name when it covers so many different things. And that was really interesting, because a little bit later I mentioned, I think I mentioned data handling or shape and space. It was shape and space because I was asking the question about the dodecahedron, and I asked a guy who was a head of maths at a secondary school who happened to be attending, and he did say to me, actually, that's not my area of maths. So, quite interesting really, isn't it? Taking up a hobby that involves maths can be helpful. Locking horns with the maths is helpful. You could maybe take up accounting, only joking, but don't do that. But painting by numbers, knitting, something that involves that, quite helpful. Trip to the grandparents, how long were you there for? How long did the journey take? How many miles or kilometres? I'm saying miles because all our road signs in the UK are still in miles. How old are your grandparents? So what year were they born in? Can we track that back? Can we find a quick way of doing that on a calculator? On a calendar. Using the calendar in the corner of your laptop's brilliant for that. How many grandchildren do they have, including you? Contextualise the number. Dyscalculic children will find it recalling facts difficult. So, and when they do produce the correct answer, they do doubt themselves. They also fail to use rules and procedures to build on known facts. So here's a lovely one. We're teetering on the edge of of algebra here. 5 plus 3 is 8, so then 3 plus 5 is 8. That might be a very difficult concept for them. And then you could build on that. So 5 plus 3 is 8. Sorry, 5 plus 3 is 8. Then do they know that 5 plus 4 is 9? And that's when you need your concrete resources. So the last one here, this is the last question is, how do you divide, or can you please divide 164 by 8?
Me?
Yes, you.
164 by 8. So I do 64 by 8. Which
No,
is...
168 by 4, sorry. I think, did I say it wrong?
Yeah, you did.
I did, okay.
So 60 divided by 4 would be 15. And then you got 2 4s in the 8. So you've got 17 already. And then you've got another 25. So that'd be 35, 42.
42. Now, that was a relatively easy one. What you would look at there as well is you've got 16 and you've got 8 in there. You haven't got 16, you've got 160. That's a confidence builder, that one, because what we're saying here is if you gave that to a dyscalculic child and got them working on that one, they might come to the answer quite easily. And but if we'd have just used slightly different numbers, that could have been quite a hard question. And one of the things that I did when I first started teaching was I started in Key Stage 1. And what I used to do was I used to get kids to write great, long, massive, huge 50-digit numbers. And then I'd go and get the head teacher to come in and I'd say, come and stand and listen to this. Okay, we're going to write all these numbers down. Now, will you tell Mr. X, will you tell head teacher whether that's an odd or an even number? And of course they would know. These are confidence boosters, and the head teacher would celebrate accordingly. Gosh, I have used a lot from Helmy. I think this might be the last one, but that's a conversion table for fractions, decimals and percentages. Really, really great. Again, finding patterns. Most people can handle patterns. Dyscalculic children may find it difficult to grasp that the words 10, 100 and 1,000 have the same relationship to each other as 10. Dyscalculic children may find it difficult to grasp the words 10, 100 and 1,000 have the same relationship to the... Why have I... Oh, the words. Sorry, I know what I'm saying now. Yeah. So the words and the numbers having that relationship together. Yeah. Sorry, I was confusing myself then. Volume. Measuring volume. You can also mark when you're measuring volume. When you're tipping stuff in, mark the receptacle first, the measuring jug first. So that you get to learn what an amount of something looks like, so you can contextualize. Digital clock there. We have many young people now are finding it really difficult to tell the time on analog clocks. That's because we don't really have any analog clocks anywhere. And so there's a lot that needs to be done with that. And I would also like to talk about this one. I had a watch with very similar digits on there, and I remember wearing this watch. It was a Seconda watch. I was quite proud of it. I really liked it. And my son coming up to me and saying to me, "Dad, that watch is useless." I said, "What's wrong with it?" "What do you think's wrong with it, delegates?" Well, some people say something to do with the length of the hands. No, the hands are okay. He said it's only got ones on it. And of course, that's the concept of the maths, isn't it? That that looking at that, if you were to take it literally, it really does only have ones on it. So getting a watch that contextualizes the maths. Use the calendar to discuss birthdays, parents' birthdays, holiday dates, duration of the holidays, counting down the days till half term, as many of you are used to doing. Measures problems with speed, concept miles per hour, kilometers per hour, or temperature. You might want to work on those. Reading maps. So there's a map of Harlow and how to get to Harlow. And sometimes it might be helpful to help you consolidate a map if you're getting into map reading. And I know lots of people use sat navs and Google now, but to line it in with a highlighter so that you get a general idea of the direction that you are going in. Number lines. I'm a big fan of number lines. When I first discovered number lines as an adult, I think I was probably in my 30s when I first started using number lines. I was absolutely over the moon with these things. I thought they were an incredible way of doing maths. And what was really interesting was I was being observed in a maths lesson teaching, and I got marked down for using my number line wrongly. Now, here's what I did. Rather than doing my number line left to right, I did it right to left. I actually got the right answer, and the children I was working with got the right answer, which then begs the question, is there a wrong way and a right way to do maths? Clearly not, you know, if you're getting the right answer. Trick is are you getting the right answer every time? Is it a dependable method? You can use counters, so you know some of the things you can do. Give them some counters. You can't do that here. If you've got counters in front of you, which I'm guessing most of you probably don't, but you might be if you're in a classroom. I'm losing them everywhere. Make dot patterns for the numbers 1 to 10 in order and consider colours. Yeah, if you can make patterns, that's brilliant. Can you add 5 to 9 with your dot patterns? How many different ways can you make a number? So I'll give you a number. So we got 5, we added 5 to 9, that's 14. Show me different ways with your counters on how to put that together, and then write it down formally. Yeah. Create a dot pattern to represent odd and even numbers, so you get to look at what it happens. Kind of numicon sort of approach there. When we get to numbers greater than 10, we might need to replace counting in ones. So when learners start working with large numbers, they see the need to change strategies. So continue with your concrete methods, but here we go. These are fabulous. I love using these. And so, let's put this down. I've got 3 different sizes here of circles, and I might get my lace here. This is a brand new lace, as you can see, and I'm gonna put these together. And so we do this, 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 and we put them together. We've got, I'm representing a number here. So on the yellow, I'm going to say, because these are big, they're hundreds. On the green, because they're a little bit smaller, they're tens. And on the blue, they're ones. So I've got 542. That's super. Lovely. Using your concrete methods still, but you're working up to using your resources differently. And these particular ones come in a range of different colours, and so you might even sort of get some extra colour coding activities within there. We need to minimise the amount to remember. This is where showing your working becomes a real skill, as opposed to just something they look for in a SATs paper. We need to break topics into stages. So I've got a hammer there, cracking a nut. It's a hammer to crack a nut. Move on slowly, lots of in-lesson revision, and keep referring back to previously learnt concepts. That will help greatly. So just, okay. I'm having moving on problems. Okay. This has happened to me before, so hopefully it won't happen again. But we're getting close to the end now, so we'll soldier through. Thinking time, as much time as needed. Time constraints cause stress. I talked about that. Make it clear to yourself whether you're dealing with real valuable extra time, or whether you are adding in frustration time. Phase out any resources that need to be counted in ones when dealing in numbers over 20. And again, when we're with our abacus, you could very, very easily say that the top here in red are your hundreds, these are your tens, these are your ones. So we've got 345. Abacus is a great one for that sort of thing. Let the learners use the resources. I'm seeing less and less concrete resources being used in classrooms. And this is a concern to me. I'm seeing this a lot up and down the country. And so, do use your concrete resources, get them out. They're not just there for demonstration. They're not just there to sit pretty in a drawer somewhere. Get them out, make sure children know. Make sure they can know that they can use them without even asking. They can go and help themselves to stuff. Writing and recording maths should happen after the experience, not during or before. Let them learn the concept first before they've got to write it down. So if you're going to allow some informal notation before requiring the standard, if they understand the concept, that's enough for me for the time being. Do not move on until it's absolutely necessary. So your informal techniques are far more important than your formal techniques. Dot patterns using an abacus again. This is quite good. So what needs to be added to 5 to make 9? So we've got our 5, and we might go right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's quite a good one. What needs to be added to 5 to make 15? What needs to be added to 9 to make 19, etc. And you've got a whole load of different ways of doing that with that. Okay. Cuisinier rods I should have here. Yes, I do. I love Cuisinier rods. Again, lovely little resource. The lovely thing about Cuisinier rods is these ones, they're usually wooden, but these ones are plastic ones. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a tenner if this was a 10 by 1 if this was a piece of Lego. The lovely thing about Cuisinier rods is that they're marked on one side 10, but they're not marked on the other. And so we've got a 10 and we've got a 4 here. So this is quite easy and obvious to make 10 and 4. But what do we need to add to 4 to make 10? Well, we can count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's fine. And then we can turn it onto the back and go, right, what do we think 6 looks like? So instead of knowing, so I can look at this brown one here and I can say, that's not a 6 because it's way, way too big. I wonder what it might be. It might be an 8 because it is that much bigger. And I might look around in my box and I go, that one looks like it might fit. This green one here, the green one's clearly a 6. I can turn it round and I can count just to double check. So Cuisinier rods, absolutely fantastic. They come with a workable diagram. And they are color coded. The more modern ones are anyway. They are color coded. Counting sticks. We're in the middle of lockdown at the moment, and I have a counting stick, and I love my counting stick. But goodness only knows where it is. I think I left it in my office. But you can get these online. They're absolutely brilliant if you can find them. They're dead easy and they're fantastic. So we're going to have a virtual counting stick. So we're going to have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and then you might go 5, 10, 15, 5, 10, 5, 10, 20, 25. Fantastic stuff to do. Get the kids up demonstrating. They'll love it. They love nothing more than getting hold of your counting stick. 111. One of the first things my mentor, when I was a new teacher, said to me, he said, one of the, was with Key Stage 1, he said, one of the first things you can do these kids to really get the wow factor, he said, show them 100 of something. He said, these kids have never seen 100 of anything. And so I did. And this is fantastic. This is some counters. This is actually genuinely 100 plus 10 plus 1, 111. And the shock when they could see how different. I've seen people do this with straws. Great little strategy, and it's a nice, easy concept for them. So we have some times table issues, difficulty to recall due to memory problems. There are times table activities out there. One of the best ways of seeing the patterns. This one is not a complete one, but I was actually doing this morning with my daughter, is to show the patterns, to be able to see the patterns, not just explain the patterns. So I remember having a teacher come into me in a staff room in a school one time, and she said, I've got a child, she said, she was being very unkind, using some very unkind words about this child, who keeps thinking 9 times 1 is 10. And I was clearly an obvious, and she was year 7, this girl, and she was clearly not an unintelligent child. She was very articulate to speak to, but she just got this mixed up with this. And so I had a packet of toffee eclairs in my pocket, and that seemed to be the thing that cracked it for her. 9 lots of 1. We got 9 toffee eclairs. So I'd like to just remind you about the colour coding. By the way, the toffee eclairs were context, weren't they? You might want to show 3 times table using Unifix cubes. So I'm going to get my Unifix cubes here, and I'm going to show the 3 times table. And so here we go. Here we go. That's lovely. And so I'm just going to go as far as 4 times 3, sorry. And okay, there's the last one. Okay, and we've got, let me just do this so we can stick them together. So we've got 4 times 3. What's wrong with this picture? I'll tell you what's wrong with this picture. It's chaotic. If you want to show 4 times 3, then you want your 3's to be obvious. So you can use that's slightly better. We've got 4 very distinct lines. I wouldn't be too bothered that 2 of them are the kind of purpley red ones. That's fine. But you've got 4 very distinct lines, 4 times 3, and the child can see that colour really matters. So what's wrong with this picture? As we've just said, colour matters. It's just chaotic to me, and it needs something doing with it. Okay, back to the Cuisinier rods. I have got, hopefully, I have 4 yellow rods. I'm going to put them together like this. So 4 yellow rods. You see that? How many purple rods do we need to make 4 yellow rods? So let's get the purple ones and put those together. We're not quite there yet. can imagine the look of concentration on my face. So then we could go, right, okay, now let's do some counting. So I'm going to get my yellow rods and my purple rods. By the way, it takes 5 yellow rods to make 5 purple rods to make 4 yellow rods. So I'm going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, to get that 20, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, lots of 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, good. We've been writing that down as we go along. And there we've got here, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We already know it's 20 because we measured them against each other. And we know, though, that 5 times 4 is 20. We take a little bit more time over that, but it's a lovely concrete way of doing things. Okay, so there we go. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 4 is 20. And then we might do the same with the orange rods. And you can be doing that. I'd love to see my facial expression on there. Using the white rods, we might do 10 divided by 5. And we might do some numerator and denominator work with that as well. Self-confidence, self-esteem. Work needs to be structured to begin at a level at which learners can succeed and then move slowly, step by step, into previously unsuccessful areas. We need to build a bit of confidence. I don't want to hear anyone say, I'm bad at maths. Nobody's bad at maths because they just maybe struggle with different areas of maths. Keep it real, context, keep it real, visual. What does 100 something look like? Tactile. Get your concrete resources. Make it fun. Maths is fun. It should be anyway. Okay. I'm going to finish you off with a quote by Albert Einstein. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think, said Albert Einstein. Okay, I would agree with that. We've just got to train the mind in a way that it finds it accessible and it finds this work accessible. Okay, we got to the end there. Thank you for listening. I do have a directed task for you. Your directed task is examine a child of your choice that you are working with. Have a look at them. Find out what they are struggling with in maths. It could be within any area of maths. And see if you can come up with a concrete intervention to help that child. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on another workshop soon.